Central bankers are meeting here in Helsinki, Finland, to celebrate the 200th birthday of the Bank of Finland. I'm here with Agustin Carstens, who is the head of the Bank of Mexico, a younger bank, 85 years old. Mr. Carstens, I want to just start by asking you about your gold purchases, because since January you've been pretty busy, more than 90 tons of gold. What's the policy that you're pursuing? Is it a change?
Well, not really. We periodically review and assess our diversification policy. Basically, we want to get the best risk-return balance in our investments, and given the performance that gold has had in the recent past, it turns out that it would allow us to have a higher expected return without much risk, and therefore it was a logical step for us to take.
But the recent past is never an indication of what's going to happen in the future. Are you confident that the price of gold is going to continue to rise? We did see a recent drop.
Well, definitely we don't have, a crystal ball that tells us that it will continue to rise. But precisely in terms of diversification and how the price movements behave with relationship to other currencies, other interest rates, it helps us balance our risks. So the net contribution in terms of risk and return makes it an attractive move for us.
So do you envisage that you will continue buying gold for at least the rest of this year?
Not necessarily. No, it's something that we review it periodically. But so far we're happy with what we have.
And what about your policy in general of accumulating foreign reserves?
Well, a very important driver has been the increase in the price of oil, and the fact that Pemex, our national oil company, have been obtaining a lot of foreign resources that by rule sell those resources to the central bank. So that has been the main driver. There is some other less significant component to it, which is the options mechanism, where we option rights for financial institutions to sell resources to the central bank, but that's a smaller component. It goes for 600 million a month.
And do you envisage that you'll continue with that, with those option sales?
So far, it's a decision taken jointly by the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank, and we're happy with the policy so far.
Now, you mentioned that increase that we've seen in the oil price. We had a pretty significant drop in the price of oil last night, in fact. Commodities, you've said, are a risk for your inflation outlook. If we see oil continuing to come down, is that going to alleviate your concerns about the outlook for inflation?
Well, Mexico has a pricing rule. The Mexican government has a pricing rule where the price of gasoline adjusts gradually through time. So that pricing rule sort of isolates local prices from volatility. So it certainly would help in making the cost of the policy less expensive for the government.
The other risk you mentioned for inflation is exchange rates. But we've seen an increase in the Mexican currency of more than 5% this year. Is that a concern for you?
Well, it's something that has been internalized in our analysis. Inflation has been behaving quite well. Last monthly figure was 3.04, very close to our permanent objective of 3%. Certainly, depending on what commodity prices do, what our output cap do, we might see inflation fluctuate in the range of 3 to 4%, which is what the central bank has been anticipating for this year.
Well, that's something that the economists who you survey every month are also looking at inflation to rise to something like 3.9%. So that doesn't surprise you, that projection?
Well, there are certain seasonalities that play a role. The price of food items also is something that might give us give some upward lift to our inflation. but it should be contained in the range I just mentioned.
But to someone outside Mexico, how do you explain the fact that Mexican inflation has in fact been pretty contained?
Well, we have conducted a pretty conservative monetary policy. We have a good balance between fiscal and monetary policy. In general, the positive outlook for the Mexican economy, its growth perspective, its financial stability have attracted resources to the country, and that has given a place to an appreciation of the currency, which pretty much has also stabilized the inflation, especially goods, tradable good inflation.
Do you expect to continue to see those foreign exchange inflows in the second half of the year?
Well, you know, they follow different paths at times, but you know, if you consider that we have a strong fiscal outlook, we have a strong prospects for growth, in comparing it to other countries, especially to the US, I think that there is a chance that resources will continue to flow into Mexico.